Welcome back to the Trust Issues Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Auckland, and I am going to be really honest with you. Today, I want to talk to you about something that kept me stuck for so long in my own business endeavors. And if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to work for yourself, you want to create a truly life-changing business and obviously an income that can impact you and your family, but you're just feeling stuck. I hope this message resonates with you because this really, truly is a story from my own heart that I think will probably land with a lot of my listeners. So let's just get into it because I think that there's a lot of people who are struggling with this. And it's so common in the entrepreneur space, but not a lot of people talk about it. And we're going to get into the details, but I just want to give you a little backstory first. Okay. So I have been an entrepreneur for over 14 years, building online businesses for 10 years. And I will say most of those years were not very successful. I don't think I really started to break out until 2014, 2015. At the time of this recording, it's 2024. So I had many years where I was like super stagnant. And even like in the years past, like I have had really great years and also just years that are like, I could totally grow more than this. But I just was stuck. And sometimes I couldn't put my finger on it. But the more that I've learned about myself, the more that I've grown, not only as a person, but obviously as an entrepreneur as well, I have learned to see what the signs are or really identify the signs within myself of what keeps me stagnant. And the truth is that this is kind of a blessing and a curse. And it's this, okay? I really believe that one of the biggest breakthroughs in my own entrepreneurship journey, and maybe this is something that you need to hear today, was realizing that more information wasn't the solution. Learning more, taking another course, listening to another podcast, binging podcasts on road trips, which I do love a good podcast, but trying to find all the answers in what everyone else was doing. Obviously, there's an element of like, you need to know what you don't know. I need to learn. I am a lifelong learner. And I think that's one of my greatest strengths, but it's also my Achilles heel sometimes. And it's really easy to have just like pages and pages of notes, filled notebooks, a ton of courses that are just collecting dust in your inbox. You have all the logins saved, but you're like not using them, right? Like a course binger or a course hopper. I know so many people who do that. And I think that there's good intentions behind wanting to learn more. But this is a trap that so many people fall into because we believe the core of it is that we believe we don't know enough to be successful. And if we just knew more, we'd finally have success. And the truth is that that's not the truth at all. If you actually did more, if you tried more, if you took more shots, that actually will lead to more success because doing will always breed more results just naturally in that you're learning by doing. You are exposing yourself to people, whether it's an opportunity or it's a potential sale, by doing. So many people stay busy and they think they're being productive, but they're not actually moving the needle. So I really want to help you today understand how to move the needle so that you can get unstuck in your business. Because I will say that I'm someone who I've been to the conferences, I've taken the courses, I have notes and notes and notes and notebooks from, strategies and ideas from all of these things that I've consumed. But oftentimes us collecting information, it almost like it hits like it's like a dopamine hit for us. It hits a part of us that satisfies a craving. But then the problem that I see happens, this like repeats all the time, is that the more you're consuming, the more overwhelm is building. And the more overwhelm is building, the less likely you are to actually have a breakthrough. So if you relate with any of what I'm sharing, tune in. Let's have a discussion around this because I want to see you bust through to the next level in your own business, in your own income, and see the success that you dream of. Like obviously if you're an entrepreneur or if you want to be an entrepreneur, someone who works for yourself and has your own business, you want to have success. And the purpose of having a business is to be in the commerce industry, to be in the marketplace, to make money, to make sales. So if you're not having that result, it's probably pretty dang frustrating, right? So let's talk about it, and hopefully this gives you some insights. So the first thing that I identified within myself when I was in this stage of entrepreneurship where I was consuming a lot. Specifically, this happens often in the beginning, but there can also be cycles that we will repeat depending on where we're at. Because if we're trying to get to a new level, sometimes that means we need to learn something tangibly in order to do so. Maybe it's a new strategy, it's how to build a funnel, it's how to market ourselves better. But this is the differentiator between dreamers and doers, right? So it's good to have the dream, it's good to be inspired, it's good to be in, to learn what you need to learn and to learn what you need to know in order to have success, in order to have change, and in order to have growth, right? However, this is the stage, the difference between the dreaming stage and the doing stage is the dreaming stage is you're only just thinking about it, right? And this is where I found myself so many times where I'm, like maybe for example, wanting to grow on social media. Then what I would do is I would go on Instagram and I would just scroll. I would scroll on creators' accounts. And then I find myself on just a random account, right? We're just like scrolling and consuming because we're thinking that like, okay, if I want to get to where I want to go, then there's obviously got to be some secret out there. There's something out there that I don't know that I need to know in order to have success. And so I'm like, I would get caught up in thinking and dreaming and ideating. But the problem with that is that obviously I'm not trying anything. And sometimes, and I will say this in my entrepreneurship journey, it's just the doing and the trial and error that actually is the best lesson. And it's not something that I learned in a course, and it's not something that I learned from consuming someone else's content. So you have to understand that like if you are in this place right now, so we have to have an awareness moment first. In order to be able to get unstuck, you have to ask yourself, am I here right now? Am I just dreaming? Am I consuming? Am I collecting ideas? Am I, collecting notes? Am I thinking about things and I'm not taking action? Because the doers, we take those ideas and we put them into practice, and we allow it to be messy. And that's a thing that oftentimes so many people are resistant to because they think it needs to look a certain way or it needs to feel a certain way. But honestly, success feels so awkward when you're creating it in the moment. The journey never feels polished. It never feels like you know what you're doing. It never feels right. It's always just kind of like you trying things out. It's like trying on an outfit and being like, I hope this is going to fit, right? You're not going to know until you try it on. And that is so much of entrepreneurship. And that's why taking massive action is so important. Because massive action is inconsistent. Massive action allows you to figure out what works and what doesn't, and trial and error. And the trial and error, and what I hear from so many entrepreneurs as well is like they don't want to be in trial and error because they're so afraid to fail. And if your association with failure is a negative one, then you'll probably never get out of the dreamer phase. You're always going to be there because you're literally so afraid to take action because the dream feels good. The dream is like, it's pretty in our minds. It looks good. It feels, like perfect when we picture it ourselves. But that's like not real life. That's not real world. And so the implementation is actually what gets results. It breeds results, but it's what so many people resist because we're so obsessed with it looking a certain way. Perfectionism is a huge thing, imposter syndrome. And so you have to identify, okay, if I am here right now, okay, just like make peace with it, identify if this is where you're at so that you can change it. And with this awareness comes the decision that you have to say, okay, I am willing and available to look messy. I'm willing and available for it to be awkward. I'm so available to just like throw stuff out there and honestly just figure out what sticks. Okay. Because that is the step one. If you're not willing to make that decision coming off the back of having the awareness, you're going to stay here forever. And I'm saying this as a business bestie. Okay. Like if you want a completely different life in a year from now, in 12 months and 6 months from now, even 6 months, honestly, a lot can happen in 6 months. If you want something completely different, then you are going to have to admit to yourself that you've been in this stage and you're wanting to get out of it. And now you're going to commit to taking massive action and implementing and letting people see your journey, letting people see your version 1. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2, the second thing is there's going to be a turning point for you. And for me, I can look back and I can see so many different turning points. There's not like just one in my journey. There's been so many. But maybe right now you just need one. You just need one turning point. You need the first one. Okay. So the first turning point that I realized was obviously when I realized, okay, I need to stop learning. I need to start doing, I need to stop gathering information, being a little information hoarder. And I need to get some concrete steps laid out for myself, and I need to make a plan and I need to freaking do the plan. Right. So the turning point for me is when I realized that where I was at and where I wanted to go. And then I identified the habits. So you're going to have to identify your habits, but here's where everything changes, okay, is in the daily action. So in the daily action, I would notice my old habits coming up, right? I was like, oh, I'm doing that thing again, or I'm scrolling again, right? Like, or I'm looking at this girl's sales page when I know I don't need to buy another course, right? So what I would do is I would set little reminders on my phone, and these little reminders allowed me to create this essential like turning point in my life. Because the truth is that when you start to change your income, you can change your entire life. And when you start to change your habits in your business, you can change your income. So I started putting reminders on my phone of what I wanted to believe, and for you, it can look however you want it to look. For me, it was like little reminders that were telling me this was like, honestly, like a really emotional time in my life. So they were very much like, I was encouraging myself. And I'm thinking specifically to one instance where I was like reminding myself through reminders on my phone that you're capable, you can do this, everything is working out for you, rejections or redirections, keep going, don't quit. Like I would have these little corny reminders, but they helped me so much because in those moments where if I would pick up my phone and I would like go to scroll, these little reminders would come up and I'd be like, snap out of it, don't do it. Keep the promise you made to yourself, right? So this started to help me just shift, little by little, 2 millimeter shifts, just tiny little pivots, and started to turn me into the direction that I actually wanted to go. Because none of this happens overnight. That's what I need you to understand is that if you are stuck in your business or you're stuck in your dreaming and not doing, you're stuck in thinking about the goals and not actually making them happen. If you are stuck thinking all the time, you're so sick of thinking about it and not doing, it's not going to happen overnight where you like change all your habits and suddenly now you have the business that you want and suddenly like you're a completely different person. Absolutely not. It takes so much time to change who you are fundamentally, especially when it's tied to your identity. Because if you are someone who is your identity is, well, I'm a procrastinator, or, well, I just am not, I'm not an influencer, or I'm a perfectionist, or whatever labels you have put to yourself. If you are labeling yourself and identifying yourself with something, it is much harder. So for me, I used to say all the time, like, I'm not organized. I used to say this. I'm not organized. I also used to say a lot of the times, I'm overwhelmed. My husband would be like, can you stop saying you're overwhelmed? Because the more you say it, the more I literally am so sick of you. And he didn't say it in that exact way, but essentially that's what he was saying. And I didn't blame him. I couldn't blame him because the truth is that if you're constantly complaining or you're constantly saying these things that are negative, what kind of outcome do you expect? What kind of outcome can you expect if that is the conversation you're having, not only just in your mind, the dialogue you're having in your mind, but also what you're saying out loud? So you have to be mindful of the identity that you assign to yourself because that is going to become your reality. So if you're saying like, I am this and you want to be something else, start saying, I do this. So I take action even when I don't know what to do. I take action even when I don't know all the steps. I take messy action. I love taking messy action. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm the opposite of a perfectionist. I'm a doer. I'm an action taker, whatever. I don't know what it is for you, but for you, you're going to have to figure out those words and those things that really you want to associate yourself with. You want people to say about you, because the truth is in order to change your life, you're going to have to change who you are fundamentally as a person. That was one of the hardest pills that I had to swallow when I first started learning about personal development and I started learning about entrepreneurship and doing all this mindset work. Was I actually heard a coach, a mentor say, if you want to change your life, you're going to have to change who you are. And I was like, dang, like that's so uncomfortable, right? But it's the truth. And when I started to change what I was saying, how I was thinking, I started to change as a person. Everything else changes after that. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. Okay. Massive action is hard. Implementation is hard. There may be a couple good days and then a couple bad days. It's just how it is, right? So give yourself the time and the space and the grace to actually get good at being an action taker, to get good, to learn this new skill, because it truly is a skill. Implementation is a skill set, I believe. Some people are naturally good at it, but not a lot of people are, because we live in a society that teaches us to consume. It teaches us to binge content, watch TV, be afraid of what people think about us, audit and edit ourselves based on how we want people to see us. That's a lot to unpack, okay? That's another conversation, another episode entirely. But this is where it starts, okay? So again, that turning point is going to be just like, what can you do to apply in your life some type of tangible reminder to start like making those tiny little pivots? It can be sticky notes on your mirror in your bathroom. It can be reminders on your phone. It can be a new habit. Maybe it's accountability buddy that, keeps you accountable to saying, okay, I'm doing my mindset work every single day. For you, this turning point could literally be just listening to this episode and realizing that you've been stuck and you've been exactly where you are because you've chosen to be there, right? So now let's start making those tiny shifts so that you can start to see a change. Okay, so the next thing is, this is so practical and honestly so boring. You might even roll your eyes at this, but practical steps have to be taken every single day in your business in order for you to move forward. Like, duh, right? That's like, duh, Erica, thanks, Captain Obvious. Like, I know that. But I want to give you a little tool that has helped me a lot in terms of learning how to take action and be an implementator. If you're not someone who is a natural implementer, it's hard to learn that, okay? But you can learn it, okay? Even if you don't feel like it, even if you're feeling tired, even if you've had a long day, you still need to commit to taking that one piece of action. So if your thing is like, I'm going to post on Instagram every single day. I don't care if it's 9 p.m. and you haven't posted yet. Freaking keep that promise to yourself. Go and freaking do it. If you said to yourself, I'm going to share my business with someone every single day, and it's 10 p.m. and you haven't done it yet, go to your DMs. And if you're listening to this, like, go to your DMs and go do it now. And that's the thing, is so many people will stay stuck because they are so paralyzed in action. And action is actually so much simpler than we think. We just have to be willing to freaking do it and take messy action. However, there is a tool, and it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. And this is something that you can use to prioritize your daily tasks. It's something that I've used in my journey as an entrepreneur, of like how to figure out like, what do I need to be doing? What do I not need to be doing? Because oftentimes I find that people are stuck on action because they're overwhelmed on what to do. They're like, do I do this or do I do that? My to-do list is so long. How do I choose which thing on my to-do list to start with? Okay. Use the Eisenhower Matrix. So there's 4 categories. Okay. So the first is urgent and important. So this is how you're going to use this. You're going to basically put all of your daily tasks, write them out. You can brain dump them, put them on a notepad, put them on your phone, whatever feels right for you. Write them all out. Okay. Then you're going to categorize them. So urgent and important. So if something is urgent, like you need to do this now, you need to respond to that client potential who is like interested in working with you. And it's important because it's also going to help you hit your revenue goals if that person signs up with you as a new client. Then you need to do those things immediately, right? Those things go to the top of the to-do list. Those are things that you do immediately and first and foremost, and you're not going to skip over them. Sometimes these are the harder things to do. They take more brain work, more like capacity, but they're the most important things. And if you don't do these other things, but you do the urgent and important things, you're going to probably be ahead of 80% of people. Okay. The second category is important, but not urgent. Okay. So you're going to schedule these things for later. So something could be important, like I need to pay that bill and it's due on the 15th. Today's the 1st. So it's not urgent. I don't have to do it today. So just schedule it. Say, okay, I'm going to pay that invoice. It's going to go on my calendar. And this is something that like I have to be so intentional with, because I'm sometimes like, again, like I struggle. I'm going to say the word struggle, but I'm putting it in air quotes right now for those of you who are watching or listening to the audio. If you're not watching me on video, I say struggle with air quotes because I don't want to assign myself any negative words. However, sometimes I really do struggle with organization, and I struggle with getting things done. And when I have so many different things and being a mom and now having 2 kids, like it can be really tricky. Okay. So I just want to say that like, you don't have to be perfect at this. Just start using this. It's helped me a lot. And when I don't use it, gosh, I feel it. Okay. So urgent and important, do those things immediately. Important but not urgent, schedule those for later. Third category is urgent but not important. I can't stand these things. These are the things that you're going to want to delegate. Okay. So the things that are like, you do need to take care of those things. It's like, I hired someone recently to help me in my business because I was just feeling super like tapped and out of my capacity. And I had some things that needed to be taken care of, like sending emails back to clients and people who were like sending me invoices and things like that. And there was just things falling through the cracks because they were, even though they're urgent, they were important too, but like not like it didn't need to be happen immediately. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, like this thing is going to like, everything's going to crumble if I don't do this today. So I started to delegate and delegating better with an assistant who has helped me with those things. So just think about yourself. Like, what can you start to delegate? Things that are urgent, but maybe not so important that they're like, oh my gosh. The fourth and final category is not urgent and not important. So you need to eliminate these things to save time. One habit that you're going to want to start practicing is, for me, when I write out my to-do list, I go back through my to-do list and then I edit my to-do list, because just because it comes to mind doesn't actually mean it needs to be done. And some things we just make up. We're like, well, I needed to do that thing. And it's like, I need to go and watch. No, you really don't. And I have learned that in order to get myself unstuck in the moments when I'm stuck it actually comes down to me really getting ruthless on what I say no to. And what I say yes to for sure, but saying no is so important because it's easier to say yes. It's easier to say yes to almost anything. But saying no, different story. Okay. So highly recommend categorizing your to-do list. Use this matrix. Next thing is having some type of a routine. I'm not like a super rigid person. Every single day looks different for me. I don't have like a specific thing that I do at specific times of the day. I don't have my to-do list, mapped out that I'm going to do this at 1:00 and this at 1:15. Like, oh my gosh, I could never function like that. That's not my personality. Someone who's listening to this right now would be like, oh, that's my dream. Like, I love to schedule everything. And that's awesome. Like, I wish I had that, but I'm not that way. So for me, how I create routines is I will basically theme my days. So I know that Wednesdays are days where I'm doing calls and I'm also doing some type of content creation because it's a kind of in the same energy space for myself. So Wednesdays is that day. Fridays I don't work. Mondays is more of a like heavier, like deep work type of day. The type of stuff that is like really got to get it done, but it takes more brain capacity. Okay. So figure out what works for you. Does a daily routine work for you or a weekly routine work for you? Figure out your rhythms. I'm also, as a female, someone who really pays attention to my cycle, and I'm mindful around my cycle because I know that if I'm feeling stuck and I'm in my luteal phase and I try to force myself to get unstuck and I try to force myself to do a ton of work during my luteal phase, big mistake. Nope. Not going to work. It's not going to be productive. It's going to be a disaster. Don't schedule big things during your luteal phase. Like for me, biggest lesson that I learned in the past years. So, figure out your daily routines if that feels good for you. For me, I have more of a weekly routine as well as a monthly routine, understanding that there's certain times of the month where I feel like so jazzed up and so excited and have so much energy. Other times I'm zapped and I just don't. And so I don't force myself to do things that don't work there. But a couple of things that you can decide when it comes to your routine is figuring out, when are you going to do more admin stuff? So that means like responding to emails, sending emails. When are you going to do more marketing stuff? That means maybe filming content or filming reels or writing emails. When are you going to be doing, client follow-ups? When are you going to be responding to your clients, making sure that they have what they need? When are you going to be even just like reflecting, scheduling in time to reflect, review your progress, look at your analytics, figure out what content worked from last month that I can repeat this month. Figure out where those things feel really good for you. For me, whenever I'm feeling like when I'm in my ovulation phase is when I want to do more content, because I'm like, I'm okay to be seen. I feel like I'm glowy. I feel like I'm just like looking better, feeling better, and I'm cool to be on camera. Versus luteal phase is more like I'm a little gremlin and I'm kind of hiding behind my laptop and I'm like doing the emails and like I still have capacity to do those things, but it's like more menial tasks, stuff like that. Okay. So think about this. And, I will say this, it is so easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis and to just be like, okay, well, what's the perfect routine for myself? Oh my gosh, please don't be that person. Don't be that person. Again, like going back to the perfectionist conversation. This is, if you're going to get unstuck, there's no, like, there's 100 ways to summit a mountain. Okay. Some are going to be easy. Some are going to be more treacherous, right? Like it just depends on what feels right for you. So don't get stuck in like, I need to have the perfect routine or I need to have the perfect, action step plan. You probably won't. And all of this is probably going to feel very awkward and it's going to feel very clunky in the beginning. But I know this, what's so much harder is the stop and go momentum. It's like stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. That is like where you're really consistent for a week and then you're really inconsistent for 2 weeks and then you're consistent for 3 days and then you're really inconsistent for a month, right? That's so much harder because that will burn you out versus just doing a little bit every single day, celebrating one small victory, knocking a couple things off your to-do list, sitting down and keeping the promises that you made to yourself, taking some important and messy action and implementing as often as you can, right? So it's like, but that is going to be so much more sustainable. And it's also going to actually build your momentum step by step by step, where it's like all compounds on top of each other versus you trying to like go gung ho for a couple days and then stop. And that is often keeping so many people stuck. Okay. Keeping so many people stuck from just like seeing what is you're capable of, seeing what is possible, seeing what your potential is. So as a recap, okay, number one, if you have been stuck as an overconsumer, overthinker, perfectionist, idea hoarder, enough is enough. Time to become a doer. Stop just being a dreamer. Stop just thinking and collecting ideas. It's time to start doing. Then use this podcast episode as your turning point. And then set up some reminders for yourself so you can have these little mini turning points within your day, within your week. It can be reminders on your phone, sticky notes on your mirror, an accountability buddy, things that are going to start to help you make these tiny little shifts so that you can start to go in the direction you actually want to go in. And then finally, start taking practical action, like actually post the post. If you have a post in your drafts right now on your phone and it hasn't gone live on Instagram yet, go to that draft right now. Before this episode is over, go to that draft and go pause this episode, please. Like seriously, go do it. Just pause this episode. Go and post that reel. And sure enough, over time, you are going to have built momentum. You're going to be unstuck. You're not even going to realize it because the thing is that so many people are looking for some grand event, some big event that is like fireworks and $100,000 deposited in their bank account today. I'm going to be honest with you, changing your entire life doesn't look like that. Getting unstuck doesn't look like that. Sometimes it looks like literally just like chipping away. I had a mentor that I worked with for many years. His name's John Maxwell. And he has this analogy of chopping a tree. And he talks about there's pretty much 5 things that he does every single day in order to continue his momentum, like just build on top of what he's been building for years and decades, right? Like he's been at it in his business and in his career for literally decades. And he says he chops his tree. So he gets up, he goes outside, and this is like metaphorical, right? But he gets up, goes outside, picks up the axe, 5 chops, puts the axe down, goes back inside. Next day, gets up, five chops, puts it down, goes back inside. Rinse, repeat, does it every single day. The truth is that is going to get you way more predictable success. Definitely going to have you unstuck because that tree is eventually going to fall over because if you're taking little jabs at it, little, hits at it for a consistent amount of time, it's going to eventually fall over. Versus if you're really like gung-ho one day and you go out there and you're like hitting it like crazy, but then you're burnt out so you don't go outside again for another 3 months. Well, the tree is still standing and you're still in the same place, right? So that is an analogy I want you to think about. Go and chop your tree. Go and get unstuck. You have everything you need at your fingertips to just go and start taking action. Take one small action today. Go take that draft that's in your Instagram reels on your phone. Go post it. Just go and do something in the direction of the life that you actually want to create. So I'm sure as you can imagine, the right action steps can create obviously an insane ripple effect for you and your income, your confidence. There isn't a big secret. It's about taking the right action steps that turn into real results. And that's exactly why I have a 0 to 100K Secrets Masterclass. It's a completely free masterclass. In the last 14 years, I've learned so much about what not to do, probably more than what even to do, because I've made so many mistakes and I've tried so many things to get massive results in your business and create a very successful, lucrative online brand. And in this workshop, I'm walking you through my exact 3-step blueprint to go from 0 to 100K in your own digital product sales. And all you got to do to get access to this workshop, like I said, it's completely free. Go to trustissuespodcast.co/workshop. Actually, you can watch it literally right now. Go and break through your income ceiling. That's trustissuespodcast.co/workshop. I dare you to go watch it. I dare you to go take massive action. It's also going to introduce you to my signature program, which is my accelerator program. This is the only place that I actually mentor other entrepreneurs and founders in building your online brand and building your online business, teaching you exactly how to set up your marketing and your messaging, your offers, your products, your sales funnels. Literally, it's an all access pass to every single thing that I wish I had when I was starting my online business. I'm giving it to you all inside of this program. So the workshop does give you a sneak peek and a pretty awesome discount to join. But even if you just watch the workshop and you take action on that, it could potentially completely change your life. So head over to trustissuespodcast.co/workshop to save your seat and watch it now. Thanks so much for listening to the Trust Issues Podcast. I hope you take action. Like at the end of the day, go and take freaking action on one thing that you got inspired to do today, maybe one thing that you learned today. And if you love this episode, make sure you leave a review, subscribe. Honestly, your 5-star reviews help so much. It really does help us get our content out in front of more people who need these messages and our episodes. So share this out. If you're listening, take a screenshot, tag me on Instagram. I'd love to chat with you and love to hear what you got from this episode. All right, I'll see you next time.